Our guest is a native of Cleveland. He currently lives in Baltimore. Ray Winbush earned his doctorate and master's from the University of Chicago. He is currently a teacher at Morgan State University. This email from Bedford, Texas says, I'm a Caucasian who favors reparations for the descendants of slaves. The U.S. government does have a duty to pay reparations if for no other reason than they played a part in the slave industry via the constitutional provision, Property Clause, which was a concession to the South to end the Civil War, which allowed slave owners to keep their slaves. And one point that this viewer brings up is the slave diet, which was notoriously poor and affected generations in terms of certain illnesses.
Absolutely, and one of the things that we include in the book, Steve, is a discussion about the health consequences of enslavement. We know for a fact that American gynecology was founded on the experimentation towards African women and who were enslaved in this country, and those operations were performed without sterilization or anything else of that kind. I think that what we do in America, Michael Eric Dyson, the educator, says that when it comes to slavery, we may well be called the United States of amnesia. We don't want to remember slavery. We want to remember the Alamo. We want to remember the Maine and other things like that, but we don't want to remember slavery. We want to talk about it, and I think reparations will also be a healing for this country in terms of getting blacks and whites talking more logically and truthfully about enslavement in this country.
Lawton, Oklahoma.
Yes, if we're ever going to achieve true racial equality in America, we're going to have to eliminate all of these laws that favor or discriminate against anybody because of their race. Now, the black race is favored at the present time by a number of laws, as is the Indians, and we need to eliminate all these laws that favor or discriminate because of race. Now, as far as slavery goes, it was a terrible institution, but most of the blacks who live in America today indirectly benefited from slavery by being brought to America and not left in Africa, where many of them would have starved to death, as many of them are still doing.
Well, this is not as amazing as some of your listeners might believe, that people actually have said to me, well, isn't it good that we were enslaved since we were brought from a continent that was undergoing poverty? And again, it shows the lack of understanding of African history and African American history. The fact of the matter is that civilizations such as Timbuktu, Songhai, and Ghana were flourishing beyond that of Europe during the Middle Ages, and that people want to forget about that and somehow jump to the incredible conclusion somehow slavery was good for African Americans. Again, I think that this is mostly based on an ignorance of American history as well as African history, which we all need to deal with.
Where is your family from?
My mother is from Kentucky. She was great-granddaughter of a slave owner in Kentucky. My father was relatives are from Pennsylvania with roots in Virginia.
This email from a viewer who said, I'd be for reparations if the Supreme Court did not just say it's legal to discriminate against white people.
Well, it's amazing those who are opposing, quote, discrimination against white people somehow have gotten religion about the racial past of this country. The fact of the matter is that, as Clayton and Bird have said in their book, American Health Dilemma, only about 11% of the time that African Americans have spent in this country have been, quote, free. The vast majority of this country's history has been based on overt discrimination and violence towards black folk. I mean, that's just a historical fact. And I think that now what we're trying to, believe is that somehow, as one of the callers said earlier, that there's a meritocracy here, that people get what they want because of hard work. In fact, that simply is not true. Discrimination still reigns in this country relative to African Americans, and it's something that's part of the very culture of this country.
HarperCollins is the publisher of the book Should America Pay? Our guest is Ray Winbush, who is the editor of this 325-page book, and we'll get a call from New York City. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Winbush.
Good morning.
I would like to say thank you, first of all, for your very articulate discussion. And I would like to say as well, as an African-American, I lived in Switzerland for 10 years, and I found it very interesting how Europeans in particular were more educated about the issues of the Africans in America and the issues within America as far as slavery are concerned, and where African people actually come from with reference to the Americas and the different parts of the world.
Why do you think that is, caller?
I believe it's because it's like he said, America wants to have a collective amnesia, and we have not been properly educated in this country about slavery, about how Africans arrived in America, and what actually transpired after that. We pretended that we just came from slavery. Our history books, as far as we were taught in Texas, where I grew up, there was probably 2 paragraphs about it, and that was the end of history as far as black Americans knew. We were never articulate about it. We were never informed. We had no defense. So we're at the mercy of people like the gentleman who called 2 calls ago and said that he feels that blacks got a better deal coming from Africa and being drowned on ships and treated in the most dehumanizing manner.
We'll
but
get a
we can
response.
obsess about the Israel question and what happened to the Jews with the German Holocaust.
No, I agree with the caller 100%. I think that, again, I was a member of a delegation that went to the World Conference Against Racism a couple of years ago in South Africa, and groups like December 12th out of New York and other groups, it was amazing to see Europeans talking about African history and African American history better than most Americans could and did. And I think that it's perhaps educational systems. We want to talk about the dumbing of America, but I'm really, as an educator, appalled at the lack of knowledge that we have about our own country, and particularly the history of African people in this country.
Along those lines, this is an email from Robert who says, Mr. Winbush, I am an African-American man and have been doing my family history. What I found in the archives of this country confirmed that my ancestors were slaves in North Carolina. I think that doing family research is a great way to find out who should receive reparations. Still, some people find it hard to let us find our ancestors by denying us access to records.
I couldn't agree with the caller more. One of the things that has just thrilled me as I've gone across this country with the book is to see African Americans who have collected incredible data, put it together, synthesize it, and can present an articulate story about their cases. There's many people who have written me, and others, and that research is what's going to get reparations for African Americans in this country, and I believe that it's going to happen within 5 to 10 years as well.
Our guest has his own website, which is linked through cspan.org. It's RaymondWinbush.com. Next is a call from Romeo, Michigan. Good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen. Am I coming through all right?
Yes.
Okay. I think that this thing could have many threads. Let me mention a few of them. I think there was a gentleman sitting where you are who wrote a book on C-SPAN. I think it was prior to the 2000 election. He's sitting right where you are. Didn't he write a book? He would mention the remunerations and Conyers. Do you remember the gentleman?
We have talked about this in the past.
May have been Randall Robinson.
Anyway, I think that prior to the 2000 election, this has 1,000 threads. You know, as a World War II veteran, why couldn't men were killed and injured sue the Jews for money for saving them in World War II? Or we could go back and do our history and find many instances. But a monetary remuneration, I wouldn't be in favor of. But if you could specify excellent education for black youth, I'm all for it.
If I understand the question, I think, again, that we need to really understand how reparations are a part of international law and a part of the law in this country with regards to certain groups. In fact, after you do the research and do the study, you will actually probably ask the question, why haven't Africans in America actually gotten reparations? Because so many other groups have, and not only, again, in this country, but around the world. One of the callers mentioned after World War II, the Nuremberg trials looked at, and many people that were Jewish and part of the Holocaust received reparations. There are lawsuits currently being prosecuted in South Africa for the evils of apartheid. And this is going to happen in this country right now. It's really a global movement that is very well articulated and very well legislated, as well as very well litigated.